No, he wasn't at that stage. No, he wasn't. And Max just slid up the inside and took him off. So
Max Verstappen just received two 10-second penalties at the Mexican GP for maneuvers considered dangerous against Lando Norris. Quite a twist, especially remembering that only a week ago, it was Norris who lost a podium due to a penalty in Austin. This time, the stewards had no doubts. Verstappen forced Norris off the track at turn 4 and even gained an unfair advantage by going beyond track limits at another point in the race. These two penalties totaled an impressive 20 seconds, something rarely seen in modern Formula One. What makes this case even more relevant is that these decisions come right after a week of intense discussions about track limits and defensive maneuvers between these same drivers. Today, we'll dive into what happened in Mexico, understand why Verstappen received such severe penalties, and how this could impact the rest of the season. If you're a Formula One fan and want to stay up to date with all the championship analyses, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get into this controversy. To understand the magnitude of today's penalties, we need to analyze the events that led to them. Early in the race in Mexico, after the safety car restart, we witnessed an intense battle between Verstappen and Norris for second place. At turn 4, Norris attempted an outside pass. He seemed to hold the lead going into the corner. However, Verstappen didn't leave any space, forcing the McLaren driver off track. The stewards didn't forgive him, issuing the first 10-second penalty. But the three-time champion didn't stop there. Moments later, in his attempt to retake the position, Verstappen overtook Norris while completely off the track. This maneuver resulted in his second 10-second penalty. The irony? Just last week in Austin, it was Norris who lost a podium. Norris lost it for an off-track pass, albeit under different circumstances, with a much smaller 5-second penalty. Reactions came quickly. Norris, who had already been warning about Verstappen's aggressive style, went straight to the radio. "I was ahead throughout the turn. This guy is dangerous. I had to avoid a collision. It's the same as last time." The British driver's comment reflects a growing tension between these two competitors. Verstappen himself seemed surprised by the severity. When informed of his second 10-second penalty, his sarcastic response on the radio was clear. "That's impressive." His engineer Lambias even suggested there was a lot of whining on McLaren's side, but the stewards remained firm in their decision. Respected F1 commentator Martin Brundle didn't hold back on criticizing Verstappen's conduct, calling his maneuvers outrageous. Other drivers also reacted upon learning about Verstappen's penalty during the race. What makes this case particularly interesting is the emerging pattern. In recent races, Verstappen and Norris have been engaging in increasingly intense battles, often pushing the regulations to the limit, or beyond. In Austin, we saw a similar duel that ended with Norris penalized. Now, just a week later, it's Verstappen facing the consequences of what many consider excessively aggressive driving. The numbers don't lie. In just 2 races, we've seen 3 significant incidents. These incidents involved these drivers and resulted in penalties. The difference this time is that the stewards seem to have drawn a clearer line on what is acceptable on track. The double 10-second penalty is one of the harshest we've seen recently under normal racing conditions. It's worth noting that this string of incidents has sparked a broader debate in the paddock about the boundaries between hard racing and dangerous driving. Ferrari, for instance, capitalized on this battle, with Sainz and Leclerc securing top positions while Verstappen and Norris fought for ground. This sequence of events is forcing teams to rethink their strategies. McLaren, which spent the week trying to overturn Austin's penalty through a formal request to the FIA, now finds itself on the other side. Andrea Stella, McLaren's team principal, who harshly criticized the stewards after Austin, praised the speed and clarity of today's decisions. On Red Bull's side, the situation is different. Christian Horner, who last week defended Norris's penalty as an obvious case, now faces an even more complex scenario. The two 10-second penalties show a significant shift in how the stewards interpret similar incidents. What's interesting is that this discussion extends beyond the teams directly involved. Other drivers have started voicing their opinions. Carlos Sainz, for example, suggested that part of the problem lies in the design of modern tracks, allowing drivers to push boundary situations. If we had gravel on the runoffs, we'd see less of this type of incident, commented the Ferrari driver. The impact of these decisions on the championship cannot be ignored. These penalties may set important precedents for the future. Teams now need to adapt their racing strategies, knowing the stewards are willing to apply harsher penalties. For the 2025 season, discussions are already underway about possible changes in driving guidelines. The FIA is planning a special meeting during the Qatar GP to specifically debate on-track combat rules. The aim is to establish clearer criteria on what constitutes a legitimate defensive position and what is considered dangerous conduct. What's curious is that this series of events is changing the dynamics between drivers. Norris, who has always been known for his more cautious style, has already hinted that he may need to adapt his approach. "Maybe I need to be more aggressive at times," he admitted. The British driver recognized that avoiding collisions isn't always the best strategy in today's F1. It's worth noting that the way these incidents have been judged is raising important questions about consistency in decision-making. In Austin, for instance, Verstappen defended his position similarly against Carlos Sainz at the same corner where the incident with Norris occurred, yet that situation wasn't investigated. Today in Mexico, the stewards seem to have adopted a stricter stance. Toto Wolff, Mercedes team principal, raised an interesting point last week when he questioned whether there is a certain bias in the decisions. He cited George Russell's case as an example, as Russell received a penalty for a similar maneuver against Bottas in Austin, even when they weren't fighting for crucial positions. "It's inconsistent," Wolff stated. "We've seen identical incidents that went unpunished." Technical teams are also having to adapt. Race engineers now need to be more cautious when instructing their drivers on how to defend positions. Giampiero Lambiase, Verstappen's engineer, who usually communicates in a very direct manner, had to moderate his tone today following the penalties. It's a subtle yet significant shift in the dynamics of racing. The safety question can't be ignored either. As 1996 world champion Damon Hill pointed out, the rules need to be better. He argues that the current set of regulations sometimes encourages drivers to take unnecessary risks, knowing they might only face light warnings. Today's penalties could be a sign that this era is coming to an end. What we saw today in Mexico is more than just another chapter in the Verstappen-Norris rivalry. It's a moment that could mark a fundamental shift in how Formula One handles on-track incidents. The two 10-second penalties for Verstappen send a clear message. Even champions must respect the boundaries. The big question now is, how will this affect the upcoming races? Will we see a more restrained Verstappen or a more aggressive Norris? One thing's for sure, F1 is at a crucial turning point in defining what it considers acceptable in terms of on-track combat. And what did you think about today's penalties? Leave your opinion in the comments on where the line should be between hard racing and dangerous driving. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on all Formula One analyses. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.